Hey guys, I'm going to cover metas today. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth and talk about how to play the character exactly, so let's just do it. Alright, so first thing to cover is the placement of this turret. Turret is one of the things you don't really think about as much on metas, but it's still very important. What it allows you to do is to get an extra source of damage or an extra angle of pressure, but what you really want to be doing with it is using it to protect yourself and protect your backline. This turret does that very well, assuming that the height of it can see properly. So what you could also do with it is put it out somewhere main, put it out somewhere in the open where it's going to be constantly putting in damage. But what you're going to find with that is that it's going to get broken really easily. And it's not going to be there to put in the damage when you need it. The damage in this game is any damage you do is very effective in this game because there's not a lot of healing. But you should keep in mind that it's better to have the damage when you need it rather than just out there all the time. So good positioning for that. Corners are good. Places the enemy can't see it and you can. So we're holding a little bit close here. There's a little bit of feeding that going on, not from our Metis player here. Although, just so you guys know, there was a lot of ping issues on the enemy team. So there's a lot of weird deaths that occur because of that. I'll show you them later on. But here we have our Metis player choosing to play more aggressively. Ends up getting punished for it, but it is an aggressive choice. So instead of playing on the right side of the map, where it's more protected, it's used marking an off angle here. Putting in damage, taking a duel between these players. Ends up taking too much damage, and because of just being new to the game, and this also being a warm-up match, ends up backing up into Crossfire where it gets killed accidentally by a grenade. Which also shows why you shouldn't walk into chokes or be in chokes meaninglessly, just in general, because you get killed by damage randomly. So this also shows how getting hit by double angles works, because assuming the enemy have an angle on the left and an angle on the right, if you are not able to take cover from both of those angles, you're now getting pressured by one of them. And in many situations, you're not able to take that sort of cover. If the enemy has 3 angles, you're never able to take proper cover, unless you're standing in like a box, which is just not realistic. And if that's happening, you can't do any damage to anybody ever. So, that just goes to show the value of off angles. So, when you lose first, when you lose this little checkpoint here, you have to understand that it's not very likely that you're going to take it back. So it's best to just back up. It's fine to push up and try and get a little bit of damage in, get a little bit of healing support, but not to go in to do it, because then you're giving them a chance to plant. You're going to see a good disciplined usage of the healing ability here, where it can also be used for resurrections. So right now our options as a Metis player here is to heal either our Pale Rider or to heal our Zaku and try and resurrect it. Obviously, resurrecting something sounds like a really good idea because we get him back, but they're going to die 100%, so it's better not to. It's better to focus on healing up our Pale Rider and make sure they're okay. Another really important concept on this character is uptime of healing. You never want to have downtime. It's harder on this character than it is on something like Mercy because the healing doesn't go through things and it breaks easily, as you can see with the Sazabi here. Also with the Barbatos, it broke off right there, and the range isn't very long. But you still need to be, like changing based on that. As you can see right there, the Sazabi's healing broke right there, just because of line of sight, which is not the fault of the Metis player. You can't really control it that well. It's difficult. I wouldn't be surprised to see them change anything. Sorry, I wouldn't be surprised to see them change it a little bit. So we're looking to push into this, and we choose to nano our Pale Rider. Our Pale Rider needs to be playing a little bit more aggressively here. And unfortunately, just by the way that it seems like a total feed, to be honest, but it's not. As you'll see later on, this Pale Rider is on high ping, so damage is coming in awkwardly, and before it can be properly reacted to, and ends up getting completely burst down from a little bit of poke. Granted, it is a choke, but still a little bit unlucky there. So this time we choose to retake onto A because A is being pressured, A is a very, very hard objective to retake, particularly with the way that defusing in this game is. If you guys hadn't noticed when you were playing, or if you didn't get to play yet, it's very, very, very difficult to retake objectives like these, or sorry, to defuse a bomb just because of the way that it's designed. The bombs have a long defuse time, and they're usually in very exposed areas, or areas where the enemy can play protectively and kill you as you go to touch it. And they only need to have one person alive to do that. So basically what you can do, and you don't have to take team fights, is you can spread around the map and just poke the people out who are defusing. It's very difficult to deal with the situation and needs to be adjusted before the game comes out, or else be very, very, very exploitable at high levels, and the game will become about preventing plants versus actually defusing, which is not something you can really do when there's two of them effectively. Yeah, so you don't want to be trying to defuse when you're looking at any enemies being alive, but just by the fact that you can tell here, our team is heavily pressuring them, and there's an opportunity to try and get their defuse. Our Metis player does pop off and get a good defuse here, but you'll see later on why there is issues with attempting to do that normally. Like I was saying, you want to make sure that you are stopping diffuses on the, plants on the bomb that is harder to deal with. The harder one to deal with is A for sure. So you need to mark A. It's okay if they plant B. It's kind of like expecting bad to happen to you, but try to protect it from the worst. So that's the situation. And as you can see here, like I talked about, a really bad ping death. We're behind a corner and we're dead. This Tsubaki is likely Japanese, so it's likely a Japanese player playing on an NA server, or our NA player here is stuck on the Japanese server. So big ping issues that were causing issues throughout the game. But that's something you have to just, unluckily, you have to deal with. So pushing back in, not running it straight down mid is good. Approaching from an angle is very powerful because it makes you safer. There's less likely to be enemies there, and it lets you put an angle of pressure on. So we go to take a 1v1 versus the Pale Rider. It's not questionable, but it's an aggressive versus defensive decision there. Our Metis player decides to go aggressive and doesn't die for it. It's okay to take fights and die in them if you're playing properly. If you're playing properly and you just get outskilled or things get a little bit unlucky, it's okay. That's how that went. You're playing an odds game. If you take a 1v1 versus somebody and you're saying, okay, I have a 70% chance of winning, but you don't, you still made a good decision regardless, depending, of course, depending on the situation, but in a all things equal situation, you still made a good decision. So as I was saying, we decided to go for a diffuse play with my shield. I'm the GM right here. Like I said, I'm not sure if I asked for it. I don't remember exactly, but the problem with this is you can't do that if there are multiple angles of pressure. Potentially on Sazabi if the angles are tight, but as you can see here, I'm protecting from the left, blocking some damage, and yet we're getting damage from main, and so our Metis player dies. So you can't exactly be doing that. And again, now our Zaku's dead. I was trying to protect it. I should have been looking at the player so I could see where they were and then turned around. But again, it's just difficult. So you got to make sure you're clearing them out. And that shows how difficult it is because you have to kill everybody on the enemy team, except for maybe one player if you have a shield or you're going to body block. But you can't just try and res like that. It's just not going to work in 9 out of 10 situations. Forces Ashimar out of position, plays their life. In this situation, our Ashimar is not going to be able to just go run in and kill them all. There's a GM sniper down main. Our Metis decides to get away from that line of sight and come back and re-engage when the situation's a little bit better. Pops ult onto our Pale Rider. Our Pale Rider can do a lot from that, and the situation is looking a lot better. However, in general in this situation, you're looking at a GM down on the right side, a GM sniper all the way on the right side, a Sazabi on the choke, putting point pressure in. It's very problematic at the moment, and things aren't looking too amazing. However, dropping here is definitely a mistake. Even if our Metis doesn't die there, there's nothing really you can do from there, so you don't really want to be there. And just in general, if you're trying to defuse it, you need to be trying to defuse it before, honestly, about 30 seconds. If you lose a fight and you're pushing back in with like 15 seconds to defuse, the chances of you being able to defuse are so drastically low that things are just looking extremely rough. And it's honestly, at that point, it's better to reposition for the next point than it is to just end for that right there. If you haven't seen my 6 Molesuit guides, make sure to check them out for lots of really important information on how to play the characters, when to play them, and what their abilities are. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it, and I will see you next time.